Ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, we'll get started here. I think everybody can hear me. This is going to be a fairly quick webinar, unlike other ones that we're going to have later on that will be a little bit more detailed. This one's to cover the new formula that we came out with, and we're also going to cover a few commonly asked questions. It won't be 2 hours like the normal ones. There are more people at this webinar than we've had. There's 251 right now, so that's a lot. My name's Don Higgins. I'm the owner of Crew Chief Software, and I drive the dragster right there in the middle of the screen in the upper left. All right, we'll get started. You can ask questions. I'll try to get to as many as I can, but I'm not going to stop everything all the time like I usually do. So we'll go over some basic stuff real quick. Those of you that have Crew Chief for a long, long time know about all this, but a lot of you don't. There's a lot of things hidden in Crew Chief software. You can turn things on or off depending on what you need out of the program. Upper right, there's this right here. I'm going to circle it with my artistic skills. If you double click right where that's circled, it will cycle through different settings up top. Let me just, so if I double click, you'll see it change all those fields. You can get different things. When somebody asks for certain stuff, if I can stick it up there, I will. That way you get it whatever you want, and the rest of us, get what we want. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the split intervals are calculated right there, and that's if you double-click the 60-foot area. If you double-click that, it will turn that stuff on or off. Let me erase the drawings here. And this down here, I get a lot of questions over what this is. 005 is how far off your dial you were, and 16.016 is your total package. The rest of the stuff we'll cover in a lot more detail before, but if I don't want the split intervals, I can double click 60 foot. So the first thing we're going to cover now is, since a majority of you know how this works, we're going to cover where this new formula is. So on the run entry form, let me get my artistic talents here. I am going to, I better change the color here. Let me do that. Go with yellow. In the middle of the screen there, I'm going to circle this area right here. I'll put an arrow down there. Man, I'm good. Delta adjusted altitude will automatically be calculated for you, and it's going to be different than a density altitude or adjusted or anything else for the most part. Sometimes it won't be much difference, other times it will. Those of you on alcohol that downloaded the latest version, and by the way, make sure you do have the latest version. We had some issues with the website, and I downloaded a lot of stuff on the website, and a new update was downloaded. Well, I think 12 to 15 of them were done the last 2 days. So just download again if you don't have the version on the top right, 2024 0118 or higher. Very important. So this delta adjusted altitude is turned on automatically. However, if you want to see the formulas, we'll have to go to our predict tab, predict DT or predict throttle stop, whatever it is you're doing. And underneath that, our prediction factors, I will circle because I'm really good at this. If you click on prediction factors, and you go to delta adjusted, let me circle that. Let me draw a big arrow to it right here. Probably should choose a different color. So right there, delta adjusted, if you click that, that is where this is controlled. Now, when you downloaded the update, crew chief will automatically look at what type of fuel you were using and set whatever it thought was the correct delta formula. You can experiment with different ones, but this delta formula is a drop-down list right here. What's controlling the factors, we won't even bother too much with, but these are the factors for one set, and this is the factors for a different set of that delta formula. Let me erase the drawings, but if you're running alcohol, it's usually the fourth one down is the one that you want to begin with. If you're running gasoline, I would probably pick the first one or the last one. But if you're running Pro Mod, a lot of these guys that run Pro Mod, they'll use the second one. It's a little simpler formula, but if you're running alcohol, let's start with Delta RHAA. So as long as you select that, which it should be already selected, if you're running on alcohol with the fuel type that's listed over here. Let me circle this on the right-hand side, and I'll put an arrow. That's your fuel type. That's what tells us what factors to begin with. Let me get rid of all that. So as long as you have that set on the predict screen, we'll go back to predict ET, and I'll show you how to turn all this part on. Right here, those of you that haven't done this, I'm going to circle this delta adjusted area. Mine says delta adjusted because I've already turned it on. But if you double click the words delta adjusted, right where my mouse is right now, you can go to air density ratio, relative air density, actual air density, and then delta adjusted. So in that particular frame, not only will we calculate the baseline delta adjusted and the current, but right over here to the right is the difference that I'm drawing an arrow to. A lot of people don't realize there's a difference column right here. I'm going to circle this entire difference column. When I ask people what's the difference in DA, they get their calculators out. It's always done right there. There's the difference in density altitude. There's a big difference. The difference in the delta is actually worse by 279. So those are the difference columns. That'll do all the math for you. So once you turn that on and it says delta adjusted there, then we'll look at it. But the formula will work whether you want to or not. And how do you get to the formula? I will circle this crew chief number one right now. It is a crew chief number one formula. Where the arrow is the answer to the prediction. You click that answer to turn on crew chief number one formula. Let me get my pen out. And here's how you build your own formula. All these check boxes you can use within common sense, but on the bottom right now is the delta adjusted altitude. I checked that over here. It's got a number, a value that we're using. On alcohol, we will tell you where we want you to begin. And that's already preset, works really well for most people. And we're going to test it. We're going to show you how you can test this new formula to see if it works for you. Uh, one of those is going to work, either our density altitude or our adjusted altitude or our delta altitude, horsepower correction, or a combination of, like DA, baro, and humidity, or density altitude. Whatever you pick, one of these has got to have a pretty good answer. And then once you check this, which I would only check the delta adjusted by itself, you can go back to the default down here if it doesn't work out for you after we test a few other factors on it. And that'll go back to the way it was. Or I would take a picture of this before you do it with your phone, and then if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you can take it back to the way what was checked before. Now, the delta adjusted altitude, you may want to add vapor pressure or grains to it, but until we see how that works, I would just leave it by itself. Over here on the top right is custom rules. Let me get rid of all these other custom rules on the upper right. That's where you can tell us when a certain weather parameter happens. Usually it's grains or humidity. Exceeds a certain value, then you want that to be added in at a more aggressive rate. Not a lot of customers use this, but I like it because my car, when it hits a certain number of grains, which is usually around 110 or so, it falls off the face of the earth. If you're on alcohol, I would think it'd be a little bit lower than that, somewhere in the 80s or 90s, or relative humidity gets above 86 on my car, it falls off the face of the earth. So when I say that, it means it's like 200s. It can drop 200s out of nowhere. So once you get the formula, what you check this and then just save it. Where my mouse is, it's hovering over and it's changed the color of save and return, and you just save it. And now that formula is what we're using. So how do you test it? Well, in Crew Chief, the new version has a really cool feature. I'm going to circle up in the upper left this black box that says base run. I'm going to put a handy dandy arrow pointing to it because that's very important. We call this Snapshot. And let me show you what happens in Snapshot when you want to use it. First off, what is Snapshot? Snapshot is, let's say I come back from a run and I put it in and I missed it a little bit. And I want to find out what might have worked. I don't want to manually type in all the weather. I want Crew Chief to do all the hard lifting for me so I can immediately test different formulas. So how you use or the Snapshot is you just hover your mouse over it. And when I hover the mouse over this box, it changes its name. What we call a caption is changed from base run to Snapshot. And all you do to make it work is click it. I click Snapshot. What does Snapshot do? Well, it takes everything from the base run and puts it in the current, including your 60 foot, the actual 60 foot that you ran. It brings all the weather over for you. And in the bottom middle, I'll bring your attention to this. I'm going to draw a box around it. If you have a paging weather station from us or trailer weather station from us, it will also turn off the weather. It will internally tell this button to turn itself off. And the reason we do that is I don't want weather coming over, interfering with what we're doing until I'm done. When I'm done, I can click this weather is off button a couple of times until it says weather's on, and it'll be back to normal. But it turns that off. It puts all the weather over into current, and it's a snapshot of your vehicle at the 60-foot mark, all the weather filled in, all the heavy lifting has been done. So now all you have to do is go back to the run you want to test with. And you do that on the bottom left, or right, usually it's switch to previous run on the bottom left to switch back a run. Or you can switch to next run if you're several back from the last run. I usually just switch back to the run I have as a baseline. So if it's a multiple day race, the morning run, I usually use yesterday morning's first run as a base run, unless it was just no good. So I'll switch back to that. Let me erase the drawings. And now I'm going to switch to previous run on the bottom left. A lot of customers don't even know you can do this. And when I click that, it goes back to the run previous. And that base run, if you look at it, has changed all of the weather readings. Let me get the drawing here. All of this now is the run previous. And if you've turned on this, there's something in the bottom middle here that you can turn on under the prediction factors area to show you what run is on the screen. If you turn this feature on, I'll show you that later, it will put the run date, run number, the lane, and what time of day it was down here in the bottom middle. And that's important so you know what run is on the screen without having to think about it. So I clicked switch back to one run. The predictions that were right were 489 with a 5, and you'll see that our delta adjusted altitude hit it dead nuts on. The other ones weren't terribly far off. The vapor pressure was a 489, which, 5 thou, and my chosen formula was 489.1, using the old type of factors. So it's not like it's a huge difference, but as you well know, we win or lose races by 3 or 4 thousandths anymore. So every little bit helps. So how do I know it works? Well, in theory, I should be able to switch back another run, go back down here, and switch to a different run, and still get a pretty close to the same prediction. If you have a good car, you should be able to do this. And it missed it by 3 thou. That's it. All the other formulas missed it by, 6, 7 thousandths or 8 thousandths. So I'd take 3 thou any day. That's better than my average reaction time. So what I'm doing is testing this and saying, okay, my other formulas aren't terribly far off, but this is better. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get Crew Chief better for every time that you use it, that you understand it a little bit better, it understands your car a little bit better, and we can try to make it function and maybe help you win more rounds. That's the whole goal here. And for me, it's to help me win more rounds. I don't go to a track thinking I'm going to lose. Those of you that have raced with me know that I'm fairly serious about this. So I learn a lot at the racetrack, and this is one thing I've been working on for a year, trying different things. And actually, this came to me from aviation stuff that I also tinker with. So I think this formula works really well. I think it can work on gas also with the first formula. With the correct numbers in it, I think it will actually work really well too. But what's important here, and I wanted to bring your attention to, is what it's doing. So let me get my drawing tool out here and show you. A lot of people use density or adjusted altitude, and I'm going to circle those up here. Okay, this is the old way of doing things. This is the difference. You notice the density altitude difference is minus 462 right there. But if we go down to our delta adjusted altitude, it's minus 19 feet. That's all. So the car in the base run went 4900. The new one went 489.5, 5 thou difference. But there's a big difference in the regular density altitude versus our new altitude. And that's an important distinction because hopefully that helps you win, get you closer. So the run before that we were using as a base run was minus 207 difference in DA up here, but the delta was only 42 feet difference. And that's gives you an idea. The car thinks the altitude's very similar. But if you were going by density altitude by itself, you would have missed it. It would have been a little too aggressive. Not huge difference, like I said, but 4 thou is 4 thou. And I've lost a lot of races by 2 thou. I just want to show you where these features are. And hold on, I'm going to take a look at a question here. Doug wants to know what's the best one for nitrous. I would probably use the first one or this one. Uh, and then I would contact me about nitrous because I may want to see some of your runs to test my theory. But I tested another customer's nitrous setup, and we used about the same number as the density altitude for the previous one, and it was very, very close. But it depends on nitrous. If the car is very stable, I would use the fourth one down. If the car moves a lot with altitude, with density altitude, then I would probably do that. I would, but either way, I'd contact me separate because the nitrous stuff can act a lot like alcohol, or it can be sensitive to air. And Wayne wants to know, do we have to put the factors for our alcohol car in there? Yeah, you would for a top dragster. Wayne runs top dragster. So the faster you go in top dragster, the smaller that number needs to be. And I would probably think that you'd need it to be somewhere around 200 instead of what's in there right now. But it may come up with a number on its own. As soon as you download that, Wayne, and run the update, it probably will have picked a pretty good number for you when you start Crew Chief up for the first time. So try that, and if you have questions, let me know on that. But somebody's got a hand up. I don't know what that really means. Man, there's a lot of people here. I am not certain what I got a message with a hand up, and I don't know what that means. I'm sorry. If you have a question, just type in the question area. There's another hand up. I don't know what all that means. Okay. So we have included handouts in here as well. Those of you that you can, I think, download them real easily as well. But this is the area I wanted to start everybody off on, explaining how to use this formula and to test it, because no formula is going to work for you unless you can say, okay, I can test this and see the results. And we use that snapshot up here in the upper left to do all the heavy lifting for us so we can test this formula and see how close it is. If it's better, wonderful. If it's not, we can tinker with some factors to try and see what it will do. And there's another question here, a bunch of them. Yeah, Tony wants to know, it'll work the same if you use Crew Chief number one. If you test formulas before, then you'll use it the same way. You just check that by itself. I wouldn't use it with any other formula right now, unless there's a distinct reason that you want to do that. So once you use this snapshot to return it back to normal, you just, where it says weather is on the bottom of the screen, I will draw an arrow to it right there because I'm such an artist. This button right here, you'll just click twice, or until it goes back to weather is on, and then it starts working. So now I just turned the weather on, and there's huge weather differences here. Let me erase all the drawings so we can start this little mess again. The difference in density altitude is 1,440 feet better. But Delta is looking at this 84% humidity, and it's saying, I don't think the air is that much better. It's actually worse because we're looking at water a lot more carefully than we would density altitude. And that's the whole reason this formula was selected to try with alcohol, because sometimes alcohol just can't stand high humidity, doesn't matter what the DA does. So I've tested that, and the delta for me on alcohol has worked better. I want you to try it yourself, but I want you to see here what the different formulas predictions would be. One of these says it would be a 486 the old way, and this one is saying that the ET is going to be about the same as the base run. So that's a big difference. And even the vapor pressure formula is saying we think it's going to be a lot faster than that. In my case, the cars that I tested with this is closer to the number that the car would actually run. Let's see, there's a question here. Brad wants to know, how does it work with throttle stops? Exactly the same way. There's no difference at all. I mean, there's no difference. All the program is an ET predictor, and when you throttle stop race, we're adding in the extra variable of a throttle stop. And if you're on alcohol, I would still start this way with whatever crew chief starts you with, and then we'll work on it in throttle stop racing to see if we need to make any adjustments. So I'm curious to see what people on alcohol do as well on throttle stops. Now I race super comp, so I see a lot of people, but there, as you well know, there's not that many that run alcohol in a throttle stop class. It is a challenge. Those that do it really well have a good system out there and they know it really well. But people that are just starting out, they really suffer on this stuff. So what would I dial here? I'd dial a 489 if I didn't want to hold anything. That'd be mine. How impactful is the delta adjusted with junior dragsters running alcohol? And that's a different story all the way around. You know, a small motor, single cylinder engine on alcohol, low compression, it cares about water content. So I would probably pick the first of the drop down list, but I haven't had anybody lately with a junior that's given me data so I can test it. So if you want me to test with yours, just email me and I will send you a list of 4 files that I want you to email me, and then I can test it myself as well. But I'll be curious. I know I have set factors because I did have some old junior data. So when you start crew chief and you're on junior, it will pick numbers for you. But I haven't tested it with a whole bunch of different ones like I did the ET bracket racers that sent me, probably 100 people sent me their data. And Brad wants to know how quick explain how to compare the old formula using old altitude to what prediction would be using a delta. If you're talking about crew chief number 1, that's really simple. And I'll get to that in just a second. Jason wants to know, is it used for gas? Yes, it can be used for gas. It will automatically figure out when you start the program where to begin with. So it has 6 different settings. Gas is the first one usually. 4th one is the alcohol guys. And the rest are still in development, believe it or not. A pro charge car, yes. When you start crew chief and you have a pro charge car, it will set a factor for that because I do have 3 or 4, or actually about 15 people sent me their top dragster data, but they're all 610 cars. Actually, 590 cars that are slowed down to 610. So yeah, that works really well. All right, let me show you how to compare them. On E85, Chuck, it will set it on the 4th one automatically, or 5th one of the two. I don't remember which right offhand. And it will come up with a factor for E85 to begin with. I do have 5 or 6 people sent me E85 runs, and I was able to test that. They're a little bit more challenging sometimes because E85 will vary from gas tank to gas tank, but for the most part, I thought it worked really, really well. So let me show you how to compare the old answer with the new answer. So here I'll erase the drawings. So as you remember, I just clicked this answer 489 thing to get into crew chief number one. So to do that, I clicked on it. And let's say I want to go back to something different. I'll go to horsepower correction and humidity and turn off delta and save it. So it says 489.2. The other one says 489.9. So it's 7 thousandths difference on that one. So I click here again. I'm going to actually do it with real data though. So let me do that. Let me switch and act like this run hasn't been made again. So I click the snapshot up in the upper left, switch back a run. And the old way with the formula that I use a lot on people with alcohol, which is horsepower correction and humidity, or you can use horsepower correction, grains, or vapor pressure. Actually, a lot of people would use grains or vapor pressure. Let's try with grains. See, it's too aggressive there. So let me see what the grains is set at here. Yeah, grains is set wrong. Let me try that. Let's see if it calms it down a little bit. Nope, it does not. So that one doesn't, I don't, let me try with vapor pressure just for giggles. No difference. I didn't think there would be. But humidity, it's looking at a lot of humidity differences, which there wasn't much, but at least it's giving more. So 489.3, which would have missed it a couple thou, or if I just go back to delta and uncheck these, save it, 489.5, which is exactly what it ran. So that's how you can compare it. Or if you want to drop this list down and drop and change the bottom two formulas, you can do that. And this DA with barrel and humidity hit it pretty good too. That's kind of odd. It doesn't usually hit that close, but there was, hell, there wasn't hardly any barometer change. So late night with humidity, a lot of guys who use alcohol would have been a little bit too much. If I average several together, let me pick late night with humidity, DA barrel and humidity. Done. Yeah, that's a couple thou. Either way, the old formula and compared to the new formula in all our testing, the new formula was usually within 1 to 2 thou, and the old formula was usually plus or minus 4 to 5 thou when it was set properly for alcohol. So, like I said, it's not a huge difference. I never really had serious problems with the predictions, but it did miss it when there was a cool front come in and it thought the car should go a little faster than it actually would. And alcohol, again, wasn't looking at DA. It was looking at water content because you can't burn it. So again, this is a testing formula that I think works really well. I'm expecting people to give me some feedback on it when racing begins. But if you want to go through your runs, provided they're good, if you use the snapshot in the upper left, one thing I will caution you on is you'll look here in the middle of the screen is the estimated 60 foot. Tony's car here that I'm using, his data only missed it by 1 thou between the two runs. If you see a big swing in the difference of the 60 foot, then no formula is going to give you an exact right answer. This car, the difference in delta was 42 feet. So that car should have stayed very close to what it was before, provided you're staging properly. And it appears he was, and the car did exactly what I was hoping it would do. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for people to properly stage before I can test a formula to make sure it's actually working the way I want it to. Brad wants to know if I used gas. Yes, I run gas in Super Comp and ET bracket racing. So yeah, I tested on mine for a long time. And it does work better than my other formulas. Again, not a huge difference, 4 to 8 thous on my car. But many times the Delta one gave me an answer within 1 or 2 thou of what the car actually ran. And for the numbers, it will automatically download. yeah, it will automatically come up with a factor based on your fuel type to begin with. And if you're throttle stop racing, then it's going to, on gas, it's going to have one set of factors. If you're alcohol, ET racing, it's going to have a different set of factors than all those. There's still hands up coming here, and I'm not sure what to do with hands up. I don't know if people aren't seeing that uh, that you can ask questions. I'm not sure what. John Bianco, do you have a question? If you do, just type it in. All these other ones, I've never had hands up before. I don't really know what to do with it. So, okay, so in a nutshell, that's what I wanted to cover. Again, we'll have other webinars coming up. They will cost 10 to 15 bucks, but we're going to spend a lot more time and we're going to go over a lot more features. Now, those of you that are downloading updates, keep in mind this is changing rapidly. So I am adding stuff to this formula every day, 10 times a day. So I am constantly trying to revise things as I see data come through, and I'm going to be adding more and more things into that. I guess double checking features, automatic updating features where it'll try to learn on its own, things like that nature. So that's all coming, but you know, keep it updated. You have to click on the show control panel. Okay. Yes, I see that, but I'm not sure how to. I see the hand thing. I got it. I see you. At least I can see who's there, who's doing this. Can I show how to activate that under search weather? That is something I'm just finishing up, but you should be able to right click on the current delta. As long as you've pulled up this run before, it will recalculate that. Old runs, until you pull them up on the screen, they will not be automatically calculated. So in order to use this feature for older runs, you're going to have to, until I finish where it will actually go in and calculate this for any unknown delta, it doesn't recalculate that on old runs because there was no field for delta density out or delta adjusted altitude before. So all that's coming, but not yet. I can't hear anybody else talk. This is not set for other people to be able to talk, just so you know. William wants to know if I'm running super comp, the stop comes off before 60 foot, what should I use for a 60-foot time? You can either override it or you can try the throttle stop adjusted 60 foot in the drop down list. Because if you click this list in the middle of the screen, there is one for throttle stop ones that'll be around here, I believe, that'll say throttle stop adjusted 60 foot, which will move the 60 foot on its own. As this, if you come below the 60 foot on your timer, it will speed up the 60 foot automatically. Um, I don't always recommend doing that. Sometimes it's just better just type in what you think your 60 is going to be. Can you go over how to turn on the lower run screen? I don't know what the lower run screen is. Okay, Judy wants to know how to show the base run date and run number. Here, let me show you where that is. Let me get the drawing tools out. What we're talking about is in the bottom middle of the screen here. It shows the base date, run number, and all that. To get that, all you do is click on prediction factors up here in the upper middle of the screen. I'll put an arrow there. Click on that. Hold on, let me get my ability to do that. And let me erase the drawings. And on this screen, there's a checkbox. I'm going to draw a really cool arrow because I'm so gifted at this. And I'm going to circle it. You check that little checkbox and it'll put the base date and run number on your predict screen. So as long as that's checked, that information will appear. Let me erase the drawings here. Erase all drawings. Predict. And another couple of questions. The run date, all that. Did I answer your question, Judy? I hope. Shows the run you are looking at, the middle bottom. Yep. How do you turn on the run data under the search weather tab? How do I turn on run data under the search weather tab? If you're asking how do you search on the predict screen, this is a really cool part of Crew Chief. Let me cite, I'm going to do my handy dandy drawing again. I want you to bring your attention to the current column. Anything in the current column you want to search on, just right click on that field. Watch this. So I want to see all the runs near 3,700 feet of DA. I'll just click on it, and then I'll right click on it. Here they all are, just like that. That is one of the coolest things in Crew Chief. You just right click on anything and it will show you all of the runs with similar altitude. Let me cancel out of this. That's one of the coolest things. So like I'll look at grains and I say, how many runs have I had with 120 grains? I just right click. There they all are right there. That is, anybody who doesn't think that's a pretty cool feature has never had to go through a logbook and try to find similar runs. No other software program in the world does that. I came up with that on my own a long time ago, and I wish more Crew Chief customers knew that. When I get done with a prediction, first thing I'm doing is right-clicking, or even a cooler feature, I'll bring your attention down here in the bottom middle. This might be what they were asking, and I'm going to use a handy-dandy arrow, probably not a very good arrow. Let me just point again. Click Search Weather button. That will allow you to have multiples at the same time. Now I'm going to add the delta adjusted altitude into this field. Again, that's something I'm trying to finish, but it will automatically allow you now, let me erase the drawings, to say, okay, I want to see all the runs where the barometer is similar because it's checked and the density altitude is similar because it's checked. It found one run in the last year, and that's the date, the starting time. You can go back farther if you want, but it automatically goes back 6 months or something. I don't even remember exactly what the number is, but it found one run with similar barometer and density altitude. And if I want to see that run, I just click Display Run. And this is what I do after every prediction. Before I go up, I say, okay, it's telling me 489.5. What have I done under similar conditions? So let me erase the drawings. And this isn't my data, so I haven't even tested this on this one, but display runs. The only run that's been similar, it went 489.5. It's probably the run that we're looking at anyway. But that's how I double check my predictions. I say, okay, great. What have I done under similar conditions? I either right click on something in the current or I'll use the search weather button to find that answer. And if that is one of the coolest features in my software, at least in my opinion is. I'm not sure if Dave, that's what you meant. This worked for the team license. You mean the right click? No, not on the team license screen, not at this time. I'm not certain I would be able to activate that feature because the team license thing basically shuts down everything not useful at that time because we're doing millions of calculations, especially if you have 4 or 5 cars under the team license. It is literally doing millions of calculations every 10 to 12 seconds. And it's taking a lot of CPU resources to do that. So we turn off a lot of those things that we don't need in the background until we're done with the team license, because it does take up so much of the CPU to do that. Robert wants to know if this goes with the ET predict. Yes, this is for the ET or throttle stop prediction, doesn't matter. It's ET prediction is what it was developed for. It works just the same on throttle stops. Okay, John. Okay, let me, oops. Answered my question. Judy, if you asked me a question, I got a weird thing popped up here. Just a minute. Hold on. Is the weather station AA the same as competition altitude on a Racer Pro? Yes, it should be. I've got a Racer Pro that I was testing earlier. Uh, they're kind of a pain to deal with, but the weather station itself is very accurate. It's just hassle dealing with their software. Uh, with my EFI and race gas, you told me I should choose alcohol as my fuel. Should I continue with that new formula? I would, yes, I would start there because, Tim, that if it's set up really close where it doesn't change that much because the fuel injection set slightly lean, then I would use the alcohol numbers to start with. Okay, so we have a huge weather swing from Saturday to Sunday. Predictions are way off from the good run. How do we get the prediction numbers tighter? Well, we have to know, we've had to have seen that big swing before. So, Steve, on the crew chief program, you have prediction factors tab, and the large weather swings is where we need to go. So if there's a large weather swing and we haven't seen it before, then we don't know. We're just going to go. But large weather swing is where we need to have different numbers. Until we know, we won't know. And that's done with calculate ratios and factors here on the calculate ratios and factors, where you'll show us a run with a large weather swing like that and let us analyze it by double clicking on it. And then we will calculate what the altitude should be for the large swings. Now, those of you who've never done this, or this is really made for another video because it's quite lengthy, but this is where we update the small factors or the large factors. So let me see if I can find one with a large swing just for giggles here. 41, 39, 2200. So now when I picked one with a large swing in altitude, it automatically has update large factors down there. And this is where it'll try to learn. But it's got to make sense. You have to be able to go from that large swing to a small swing or to another large swing and it still work the same. If it doesn't, usually it's a track related issue or a car issue that we have to deal with. But that's how it learns. I downloaded the new version and will run Noon Delta. Do I need to turn this on? Yeah, I would turn it on to test with, William, if you're going to try to run samples like this on your supercomp car. Yeah, with alcohol, if you have a huge swing, you have a supercharged car though, Steve, right? And if that's the case, then supercharged cars many times will heat the intake system so high that they are very sensitive to weather changes. So if that's the case, we need to use that calculate ratios on large swing run and let us see what that really means. On the supercharged alcohol cars during the day, I've seen them where it takes 400 or 500 feet to change the car from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock. But the next morning, the car runs 900ths faster. So now we're down to 100 feet, changes that car 100. But until we know that, until you show us that or calculate ratios using that, we won't know until we know, if that makes sense. Yeah, predict in a new location vastly different from home track. Yeah, if you go from like I went from Las Vegas one week to Gainesville, Florida the next, and I went 454 in Las Vegas, and the prediction said I was going to go 442 in Gainesville. Well, I had to slow the RPM down on the launch because the car wanted to lift the front end off the ground and do all sorts of crazy shit. So when I did that, I slowed down the RPM by 200 and the car went 445. It predicted like 443, 8 or something. But when I slowed the 60 foot down, it actually predicted within about 5 thou of what it actually ran from those two. However, I cannot go from Las Vegas to Bristol, Tennessee, because Bristol, Tennessee is an uphill track. It's uphill like 13 feet. So you have to basically have a separate database for Bristol because you just can't predict. The weather doesn't show the track to be that slow, but the fact that you have to go uphill 13 feet from the starting line to the finish line will slow the car down more than the prediction would ever say. Okay, Steve would say, yeah, we ran a 704, is predicting a 703. Uh, well, if crew chief one was predicting a 703 and the others were 699, then that is where calculate ratios needs to be used so you can tighten that up. Then the next time you see that big swing, it's going to know that, whatever you ran before the 704, I'd be curious about. And that's where calculate ratios, that's how it learns. That's really a very lengthy video that we're going to have to go through to show you how that's done. But it's very fast to teach crew chief what large swings in weather and what small swings in weather actually mean. So again, this formula is designed to get us a little bit closer. I never thought that I was terribly far off, but some of the testing, my old formulas were 100th of a second off, where the delta one was plus or minus 2 thou. And if I'm plus or minus 2 to 3 thou, even 5 thou on my predictions, that's better than my average reaction time. Now, if your average reaction time is 002, well, then, I need to work on the predictions. But a lot of people don't realize, too, that you can look up your average reaction time on the logbook screen. Those of you that are just new to crew chief, this button down here on the run entry screen, that is your pal when it comes to analyzing weather and your car. I haven't looked at his here, but let's take a peek at one. Here's all the runs side by side, and the cool features on the logbook screen are these little numbers in between the rows, or the columns, excuse me. Those are the differences between the major stuff. Difference in reaction time, difference in 60 foot, difference at 330, difference at eighth mile, difference at DA. I'm going to have a screen for this that'll have delta in here as well. Difference in humidity, difference in horsepower correction, difference in grains of waters right here, difference in split intervals right down here. And we have corrected to standard ET, which this one hasn't been corrected upon, but down here, I'm looking for double O's. So split intervals should be double O's everywhere you go. Anything that's missing, like this one has a missing data, that's because it's exactly the same. And these two runs, 001, 001. That's what I want to see. If the weather is not changing dramatically, then your split intervals shouldn't be changing. They will be changing, however, if you don't stage properly. And a way I tell if somebody's not staging is, one, your action time is going to be a positive and your 60 foot's going to be a negative, or opposite. Uh, if you go in deep, you're going to have a quick reaction time and a slow 60 foot and ET. Also on this predict screen, or on this logbook screen, is the stats button on the upper left. The stats button will give you the averages for both lanes. And a lot of people don't realize it does this. I click stats, here's the averages for both lanes. On the bottom of that stats button or screen, there is these little check boxes, normal or trimmed. If I click trimmed, that will take the high and the low out of these. So if I click trimmed, it will change, and now it's just looking at what I call the average of the averages, which is get rid of the high and the low. We're always going to have some weird run that It doesn't make exact sense. So I get rid of it and I look at my average. So in this particular case, this person had 5 runs in the right, 3 runs in the left. The trimmed average, he was 009 reaction time and 11 on the right lane. Here, his average ET was 492 in the left and 490 in the right. What that usually tells me is that there's a difference in the lanes. Because the average DA here is 4105 and 4136. So that tells me there's got to be a lane differential between these lanes. I mean, the mile per hour, the ET, and everything is different. So I'm going to go back to a non-trimmed average and just take a look at this. I didn't look at this before, but 490 with a 5 on the right, 492.3. The trimmed is 492.7, 490 with a 2. So there's not a big difference there, but there is a difference in ETs that's not explained by weather. And I look at this a lot to say, okay, which lane do I like? Well, I'm better in the left, but I may like the right. And that's kind of what I found out is I'm better in the left lane, but I don't like the left lane. I mean, I'm 1/8 of a second on average better in the left lane than I am in the right on reaction time. Yet I still head for the right almost every time. But I've been catching myself this last year and I've done a lot better because I went where I do better. So use that screen. The CW button on the upper left is current weather. That'll just pop up a little box that shows me the current weather. I can drag that screen around and I used to use this to match up what I should be looking at for a baseline run before I started the right click on the predict screen that does the searches for me. So we've been an hour here. I don't want to go too super long, but I can take time for some questions because I didn't want to spend forever on this. Anybody else have any other questions? I hope you guys have learned something because at least, if nothing else, it gives you something to try. And I think it'll be kind of cool when you test it to see if it's better, worse, or about the same. All right, Wayne, I'll see you in Gainesville. I live in Ocala, Florida, so I'm only 35 miles away from that racetrack. So. And it's cold here. It's going to get in the 40 degrees, which I know you guys up north were in the negatives, but this is the equivalent of negatives for us, just so you know. It was 55 degrees today, and I'm in a winter coat because I've turned into a bit of a sissy since I got up here. That's all. Well, if there's no other questions, you can always email me if you do. This will be available to download or to view on our YouTube channel if you go to Crew Chief Pro and YouTube. And I appreciate everybody coming. There was a lot of you. When's the next webinar? The next webinar is probably going to be in about a week and a half when I get done with more of these features. I'm testing a lot of things. I still have probably 100 people's data to go through, so I'm thinking a week to 2 weeks. I'll let everybody know. I'm glad you liked it, Charlie. Glad that new information was useful to you. T-shirts and shorts in Lake Havasu. Yeah, you guys have the good weather right now. Thanks for, appreciate it, Robert. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate it. Well, I'll go ahead and shut it off. It's been an hour. I'm glad that you guys learned some stuff. That's what it's all here for. There will be a seminar or a survey that's going to be emailed to you. Let me know how we did, and thanks again for showing up. I appreciate it. When it will be available on YouTube? Hopefully tomorrow. Yeah, no problem. There's a lot of people missed, but that's why we put them on the web so everybody can see them later on. Thank you. Appreciate it. If you got any other questions, you can just give me an email, but I'll cut it off here so I can go get something to eat. I'm very hungry. Will there be handwritten info? Yeah, there should be able to download right now a some material that some 2 files in there. Thanks, Mel. Appreciate it.